Have a seat. So what I'd like to do is help us remember a little bit about giving from the acronym GIVE, G-I-V-E. And the first one is this: God owns everything. So here's some popcorn. When we go to the movie theaters, a lot of times I will buy popcorn, right? Yeah. And since I am also cheap, how many popcorns do we typically get? The family one. What do we do with that family one? We eat it. And you actually like holding it, don't you? Yeah. So I'm going to let you hold this for me, all right? So first thing is this: God owns everything. So I just handed this popcorn over here to Samuel, but who really owns that? I own that, right? You could be like superficial, God owns it. But in this illustration, I own this popcorn. So that popcorn is being used by who? Samuel. He is just stewarding what is mine. God owns everything. Guess what? Your car, your house, your kids, your wallet, it is God's. He owns it all. Can I have that back? Are you sure? Okay, so you can give it back. So he has some options here. He could have said, no, it's mine, right? If he said, no, it's mine, would that go well for him? No. Why not? It's mine, and do you think I can physically take this from him? If you vote no, you are really wrong. I can physically take this from him. What he also may not realize is this is a little bit of popcorn, but if I wanted to, I could go to the store and I could cover this boy in popcorn. I'd give him so much popcorn, he wouldn't know what to do with it. When you're at the movie theaters, aren't you thankful for the free refills? We try to knock out the first bucket before the credit or before the first part so we can send the kid out so you don't miss the movie. We go through lots of popcorn. And the reality is we do share it down the row. And I want you to remember this, that God owns everything. So when I have some of this popcorn that he let me have, here you can have it back. Whose popcorn is this? It's mine. So I'm just having a little bit of what is mine already. When we tithe, when we give offerings, we're simply returning back to God what's already his. We're just stewards. The next one is this: invest the physical into the spiritual and eternal. So I jumped a little bit ahead of myself. Can I have the popcorn back? All right. So you like Mike and Ike's? You can open those up. Those are for you. You know what's also kind of cool about our God who owns everything is sometimes we give him back, if you will, the popcorn, and he gives us something better. Do you like Mike and Ike's better than popcorn? Yeah, it's not even comparable, is it? But we're still talking food, aren't we? It's food for food. The next thing is this: invest the physical into the spiritual. Can I have the Mike and Ike's back? Are you sure? All right, cool. Because I got something else for you. It's your birthday coming up, isn't it, in a few days? How'd you like to get a birthday present early? Here you go. Would you guys agree that this Xbox One game is something of a different kind? It's not food anymore, is it? That's what our God does with us. He takes the physical and he transforms it into something. What did he just do? He transforms it into something better than the physical. He doesn't always do a popcorn for a Mike and Ike. When it comes to the, if you will, the physical for physical, sometimes instead of it being the popcorn of the Mike and Ike, he turns into something of a completely different nature. This last year, we saw literally, I think the number is around 30 or 40 come to Christ through our Kids of the Kingdom program, through teaching at camp, and through the ministry of this church. That money that you put in the offering plate, God did what only God can do. He took the physical and he did spiritual work with it. That is something that you can't get a return on investment anywhere else in life. But invest the physical into the spiritual. The V is this: view giving as an act of faith and worship. Can I have that back? Now, who owns these three things? I do. The game, the Mike and Ike's, the popcorn. That represents our stuff. Are there times that God asks for our stuff back? Are there some things in life that are harder to give back than others? This last year, Toby Mack lost his firstborn son. Had to give back his firstborn son. You can have all the money in the world, but please don't take my kids. But guess what? Those kids are just what? They're God's. God loves Truett more than even Toby Mack and his wife love Truett. God loves your kids even more than you love your kids. Sometimes the stuff in our hands isn't the financial, it's the relational. And sometimes it feels like he's prying things out that you will never survive if these things leave. When we give our finances and we give our lives, we are trusting that our God is faithful and he knows what is best. Samuel, do you trust that you might get that game back? Yeah. Okay. Do you trust that you might get that popcorn and that Mike and Ike's back? Yeah. You probably shouldn't trust that. I'll give them back to you. Here you go. View giving as an act of faith and worship. The reality is none of us know where our next paycheck is coming from. If you're in small business, you know that very well, don't you? Your employees think, yeah, the check comes every week. But you're like, but you realize that check comes because we get work and those people that we work for pay us. Sometimes those things don't line up. So if you're a small business owner, you kind of understand living by faith on a week-to-week basis, don't you? A lot of us have jobs where the check just magically comes, right? Just deposit in the account. I don't know how it happens. I don't need to be in the kitchen. I just want the money at the end of it. But every time we give, we're demonstrating faith that the God who entrusted us with this finances is the same God that will provide next week and the week after. And his provision may not always be the same. One of the ways that we can say we don't trust God is by saying, I can't give right now because I've got this coming. And we store up treasures for this earth instead of entrusting God what he's already given to us. And that's hard, isn't it? I'm not saying don't live on a budget. I think spending plans are ideal and necessary, and God has called them to do that. But spending plans are not intended to make us stingy towards God. Was Mike and Ike's good? I hear him. You weren't having any? Okay, good. Here's the last one. The E is this. Enjoy giving generously to a generous God. Sam, was it hard to give me back the Mike and Ike's? Not too bad. If you could trade Mike and Ike's for popcorn for an Xbox One game, how often would you make that trade? Like every time? Yeah. So if I told you that every time you give financially, God is making spiritual fruit from that, how many would be excited about giving every week? I know I would. And I am. When you no longer see the dollar signs of what you're giving, but you see God is using that for his glory and his purposes, and he is making disciples, all of a sudden the dollar figure seems pretty small. I know you like Mike and Ike's, but do you like Xbox One game better than Mike and Ike's? Depends on how many Mike and Ike's. Okay, you're a bad illustration for this. I would typically make an Xbox One for Mike and Ike exchange every time. Why? Because one is definitely of more value than the other. When we give, we should come to our giving with a smile on our face, excited about what God is going to do through the simple thing like our money. The big idea this morning is simple. Give generously because God loves a cheerful giver.